I'm Judah, and that's Jonathan, and that way, and uh, and we're here to talk a little bit more about the Jubilee Underground project, and today, how are you doing,
Good. It's
Jonathan?
been a good day.
Yeah, yeah, we've talked a little bit already, and talking about how a lot of good things happening, a lot of complicated things, but you had a good talk with Paul, and a lot of good things were worked out.
Yeah. Last week was a lot of good gathering and communication and a little bit of content creation. I hope we get that out there someday.
Good. All right. Yeah. Well, and then you're headed to a foot washing in a couple hours, or pretty soon, and we were talking about how that certainly plays in, and so how does foot washing? I'll just put it to you. How does foot washing play into the Jubilee Underground?
Well, it's a foot washing is something that certain branches of, I guess, Christian fellowships or certain denominations practice, almost like a rite
Hmm.
or like RITE. Um,
Like a rite of passage type, but right. Yeah.
yeah. Um, or a like Eucharist or baptism is a sacrament.
Yeah.
It's a means of experiencing God's grace symbolically. It's participatory symbolism.
Hmm.
So like it will lead you to the truth, or it will lead you to um, a deeper sense of the mysteries of the realities of the universe by participating. And
Hmm.
for me, I don't know how it is for anybody else, but it's hard not to be moved. Um, like I can't participate in the wrong frame of mind or um,
Hmm.
just be there to be there. It means a lot to me. It I leave with a renewed sense of the importance of servanthood, my proper place in relation to my fellow brothers and sisters and God, and remembering the example that Christ gave us. And they read the passage where he instituted and said, "Do this to each other." Like I'm going to wash your feet, and I want you to wash each other's feet. And the passage starts off and it says, Jesus knew that all things had been given into his hands.
Hmm.
He knew that he had come from God and that he was returning to God.
Hmm.
And so he took off his clothes and wrapped a towel around himself and filled a basin with water and got down on his knees and washed his disciples' feet.
Hmm.
So he didn't practice servanthood from a place of having a poor sense of self-esteem. Um, he wasn't lowering himself um, with any kind of chip on his shoulder or resentment about it. It was because of his identity as the Son of God with all power and all authority that he uh, instituted this symbol of how to be a servant to each other
Hmm.
with all the power that he had. So I wasn't really familiar with it. I mean, I was familiar with the passage, but I guess I didn't grow up in a tradition that practiced it very
Hmm.
frequently. And now I am in the Mennonite tradition. Um, they have a communion, like a breaking of bread, Eucharist, and foot washing together about every 6 months. And
That's
the
all.
first I'd been in the Shenandoah Valley for about, I don't know, 2 days
Hmm.
when I went to my first foot washing, and I had recently rededicated my life to Christ
Hmm.
and started living a new way.
Hmm.
But I'd come from a really rough and troubled and wild uh, past decade.
Existence?
Huh?
What were you saying? I totally ran over you. What a wild what?
Past decade.
Oh, past decade.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
like I just spent like a decade of my life completely wild and insane. And I just showed up here in 2012 as like one stop among many on my travels. And I ended up at a Mennonite church where they were washing each other's feet. And they sing a song when they have a tradition of singing a song during the foot washing. And one says, the lyrics are, "Will you let me be your servant? Let me be as Christ to you, and pray that I will have the grace to let you be my servant too."
Hmm.
All the lyrics of that song are really powerful. And that was the first time I'd heard anything like it. And it broke me. I was like laying on the floor in a puddle of tears.
Wow.
And nobody knew me at that point. I was new. And so I was just a visitor. And the one sister who ended up becoming a close friend of mine later, she said, "That was the first time I saw you, as you were laid out on the floor, bawling your eyes out." And I was thinking, is anybody going to check on this poor homeless man and ask him how he's doing? If everything's okay, what's wrong? And I was like, you were seeing me on um, one of the most powerful events of my life.
Hmm.
It just hit me, the reality of Christ's power in his servanthood, and how that should inform the whole rest of our life. Every relationship that we have just hit me like a ton of bricks. Um, and so I stuck around, and I'm still here 11 years later, um, partially because of that experience. I remember about a week later, I was on the road again. I was hitchhiking across Virginia going out to Richmond, and I got stuck because the cops didn't want me on the highway, and I was on top of the Blue Ridge Mountains, like with nowhere to go, and I'm like, I can't get off the road. Like a steep embankment to the jagged rocks below. Where am I going to go? So the one cop actually said, "Get in, I'll drive you into Charlottesville." And I was like, "This is the first time I've been delighted to be in the back of a cop car. Thank you. Like, I appreciate it." He's like, "No problem. I like helping people when I don't have anything better to do."
Wow.
And I ended up telling him all about the foot washing. I was just like flying high on the joy of that experience, and like, "You should go to a foot washing sometime," I'm telling the cop as he drives me into Charlottesville.
Cool.
Yeah. So that was 2012, and
Wow.
today it means something different every time. It teaches me something different every time. It like humbles me for a different reason every time.
Yeah.
Sometimes if you're part of a community for a while, you rub each other the wrong way, you insult each other, you offend each other, you have you might be harboring ill will or ill feelings towards each other, and you can't really partake of these symbols of like the communion um, and the foot washing sacrament together
Yeah.
and come out the other side still upset at each other. It's best to overtly go to somebody beforehand and reconcile, say like, please forgive me, and I'm sorry that I haven't forgiven you.
Hmm.
You're my brother, you're my sister, and
Hmm.
now let's go um, celebrate these participatory symbols together with nothing between us. But if you didn't beforehand, it will break you. Like I feel like the spirit will just bring it to your memory. Like, you need to work on this, man. You're not in the right place.
Hmm.
And sometimes it just so happens that the person that you're upset with will say, "Come with me, and I wash your feet, and you wash my feet," and just bawling by the end of it. Like,
Yeah. Wow.
you can't still be egotistical by the end
Yeah.
of it. It brings reality home. So that's kind of an introduction to my experience of it.
Yeah. Well, and so what I'm hearing you saying is that you 11 years ago realized the power of this sacrament, but more participatory, um, symbolic. So this is a participatory symbolism,
Yeah,
and
I knew like this is the way.
yeah, that's the way.
This is the way. This is what it's about.
Okay,
I
and
need to get a hold of this.
it and participating in it transformed you,
Yeah,
like from what I can tell, like nothing else.
yeah,
Like no other sacrament or participatory symbolism.
yeah. I love them all. I love weddings. I love funerals. I love the breaking of bread, and I love baptisms. And I'm kind of
This one is
Quaker,
special to you, huh? You're
huh?
kind of Quaker,
Yeah. What were you gonna say?
but this one seems to be there's like a certain softness in your heart, right? A certain affinity.
Yeah,
Like,
it's really special to me. Um, I'm kind of Quaker in that sacrament finds you. You don't find sacrament. Like, when
hmm,
you least expect it, you know, like
hmm,
the universe will tee you up and just whap. Like, you'll be in the middle of it, realizing the mysteries of the universe because you watched a butterfly go by, or like watched your child be born, or
hmm.
sat next to a river and was so quiet you forgot all about war and all the horribleness about the bills that were due, and you just like became one with God. And that's like, I didn't say, okay, we're going to schedule this meeting with God by the riverside at 2 o'clock on a Thursday, and I'll see you there. It
Yeah,
finds you.
right.
Um, I don't think we can really control all that,
Yeah.
but yeah, I don't think I've ever been to a foot washing ceremony that didn't blow my mind afresh.
Well, and we've already talked about we've talked at length about how reconciliation is an important aspect of the Jubilee Underground,
Hmm.
right? And foot washing. Well, let me ask you: it sounds like to me, and in my experience, there is a reconciliatory power to the foot washing. I mean, obviously, when you're saying you need to get right with somebody else, you need to reconcile with somebody else before being part of it because there's why. Can you tell me why? What is that?
Um, well, I mean, it comes down to, I would say Anabaptists have a good sense of we,
Hmm.
um, in a way that most other people don't. Uh, Like,
Hmm.
I'm pretty much an individualist from an individualist tradition, and I was just programmed that way to think of myself as an I.
Mhm.
And we doesn't come naturally, but
Mm.
there's actually a culture of having an identity in the body of Christ.
Mm.
That like I'm not me without you. And so when you're getting together to express unity and mutual submission, mutual servanthood, um, that I'm a part of you and you're a part of me, and we're part of a family that God made. It's not of my making, but our unity is a gift of grace. Then you can't come into it faking it, and you can't come into it with ego and then pretend like, yeah, I love you too, brother. Like, God bless you. I'll pray for you, and then be like, when you leave. It's like it reminds you that you're part of something larger than yourself, and
Yeah.
love's at the heart. Love is at the heart of it, and unity is the reality of
Well, it seems to me kind of what you're revealing is that it takes some intimacy, some nakedness, and like naked feet. There's
it.
nothing quite naked as naked feet, and washing feet to really strip away pretense.
It's real. It's real awkward. Yeah,
Huh.
Jesus had a real sense of humor to pull that one off. He really-
Well,
Make sure you get in between the toes, man. Uh, I'm not kidding. It's
yeah,
it's an embarrassing. It is a humbling experience.
yeah.
That's also sacred. Um, Reminds you of your humanity.
Wow.
When and also your equality. Um, the one aspect of brotherhood and sisterhood is that there is no ranking, you know, in God's society. When in God's kingdom, there isn't any getting to the top. The bottom is the top. The master rules from underneath. Like
Mm.
this isn't the Bible, but there's a Chinese saying. I think it's from the Tao. It said that the ocean is the king of all the rivers because it lies lower than they. And so, Jesus said to whoever wants to be the greatest in the kingdom of heaven, let him be the servant of all. And
Mm.
whoever tries to exalt themselves will be humbled, and whoever humbles themselves will be exalted.
Yeah.
So, and then how it like what? We don't see anything like that anywhere. It's all trying to get to the top. That's the way we roll. All businesses, institutions, disciplines, in like um, governments or social hierarchies. That you're even in animals, you're going to have a pecking order to establish who's top, who's alpha. And that's the way we do things. It's like seems inescapable. So after he said that very confusing bunch of stuff about the least being the greatest and the greatest being the least, he lived it, and he lowered himself to a position of a servant. Even though he knew who he was, he knew that equality with God was his birthright. He became obedient to the death of the cross, and so God has exalted him and given him a name above every other name, so at the name of Jesus every knee will bow and every tongue confess that Jesus Christ is Lord, to the glory of God the Father. So because he put himself at the bottom, he is raised to the top. That's the way the whole thing works. So yeah,
Yeah.
there's no out competing each other unless it's a race for the bottom.
Well, so what that tells me is that Jubilee Underground, and gets back to the idea of a new vocabulary, a new language. And part of that is that redefining success,
Right.
because I mean, the reason we can't think of a way for people, for the least of these, to be successful, and I mean, that's what makes them the least of these. They're not successful in some way, right?
Right.
And so it goes against the definition.
You're right.
And so how do we uh, define success then? And I don't mean just like, so I mean, I guess it just makes me curious. I want to start thinking about, like, what is it? I mean, it's one thing to say, like, well, because we're not going to be called the same things that Christ, right? Like, we're not going to be exalted like Christ, or I don't think. And
Well, I
and I
don't.
don't know that. And if we start, so it's like, it's tough, because if we start, like, trying to be successful in that way, it defeats the purpose, right? If we
Yeah.
and So what does it mean in everyday life? Like for me and you, I'm looking out at my backyard now, and things that I would think of success would be like getting that done, getting that done. And so, you
Right.
know, I extrapolate from that. I need to get this money and that money to do that, and I need to be successful to do these things. And so, how does that fit in?
Um, yeah, it is a redefinition um, of what your goal is and what's the most important priorities. It restructures your priorities. I don't know how you would like institutionalize that. Like, let's put it on paper. We're going to start a new um, community. We're going to start a cooperative whose values are servanthood and um, putting other people before yourself. And
That goes against the purpose, right? It goes against the it.
we're going to reward humility in this organization. Um, but it's good to at least have structural reminders,
Yes. And I think,
guideposts. Like, don't forget, like, this is up.
well, I think that's what I'm taking away from this, is that
Yeah.
it's not about it's not institutionalizing um, values as much as it's, I mean, from the beginning, what have we been talking about? Sacraments, been talking about um, s- participatory symbols to remind us uh, of what we value, instead of institutionalizing it, like what. And I think there are a lot of evangelicals that see sacraments as institutionalizing values, right? Like making values rote, like it focuses on our practice. But I mean, I think what you're talking about, to me, highlights the value. If you do it right, for those that are doing it too, when we take the Eucharist to remember the sacrifice and blood and body, and the broken body of our Christ, um, and just his body in general, that he had a body, um, to me, that's powerful. When we wash each other's feet, when we get baptized and come out of that water, uh, when we get married, all these things, I think, unless we look at them from a participatory, symbolic view of, of the kingdom that we're part of, instead of, like, is it being a calling
It's not
card
all
saying we're not
bad.
part of this world, we're part of a different world.
Right. We've realigned our hearts with reality, the reality that we're part of.
Hmm.
So and it's not abstract.
Right.
We didn't just read about it or think about it. We took action, and when your body is involved,
Yes.
you know, called praxis, it sticks. Maybe it's for the kinesthetic learner or something. It really sticks. But I don't know. I can imagine you see people like especially in the Catholic tradition, they have a process of making people saints. What do they call that? I forget. I'm not.
Yeah, what is that called?
Yeah.
I know what you
Anyway,
mean. Yeah.
there's a process.
Yeah.
Um, and usually it's somebody who, I mean, not all the time, but somebody who labored in obscurity among the poor and
Yeah.
um, wore common clothes, no shoes, subjected their body to rigors of voluntary poverty and was kind of an ascetic. Is that the word? Yeah.
Yeah.
They chose a humble life um, in service to others, and it's ridiculous according to the empire's standards of how a life ought to be lived. Like, why would you just have one suit of clothes and eat half an apple a day and, you know, wash lepers' sores for a living when there's all this gold and stuff to get?
Yeah.
There's all this property and privilege to be won. Like, come on, get a grip. Like,
Yeah.
realize what's important. And these people just said, no, I know what's important. I'm going to do it with the rest of my life. And then after they're safely dead and buried, we like to look back and say, what a great man. We're going like we're going to pour accolades on them, and we're going
Canonization is what it's called.
that's right, canonization.
I looked it up.
So, can you imagine like a living canonization where somebody's just minding their own
Yeah.
business, like making sure that all the bulletins are collated, or like leaving people envelopes of cash when they know they're having a hard time, or
Yeah.
like doing secret gifts of generosity and being a servant, and somebody notices and's like, we're having a you know you're a saint day, and all of the people who have been busting their butt behind the scenes are going to get a gold star pinned on they're going to get their crown now.
Yeah.
They could be mortified. Like, we're going to make you the pope, we're going to call you your eminence and your grace for the day. It'd be mortifying to somebody who actually knew what Jesus was all about and wanted to be like him. Like,
Yeah.
please stop giving me titles and awards. Like, go away and leave me alone so I can get back to reality. And then Tolkien said, this is not an exact quote, but I'll try. Tolkien said, like, not one man in a million is fit to rule, least of all the one who desires to rule. So he's basically saying, if you're even in the running, if you're campaigning and saying, elect me to be over everyone, that is the worst possible method for choosing a leader. Like, we should probably find somebody who's like kicking and screaming and clawing to get away from any kind of position of power or title, or to be
Maybe. I mean, that seems like an opposite extreme.
yeah,
Maybe we just look for the one quietly doing
yeah,
it.
yeah. If we could
And
say, you're doing the work that needs to be done, thank you, we're going to give you more responsibility.
yeah, yeah. I mean, there is that aspect of it that is it's hard, but maybe none of this has to do with us giving anything, right? Like maybe this is all about just us all participating from the top to the bottom. And this is what I'm hearing. Like I'm visualizing while you're talking that everyone participates this, and it's sort of a what is it called?
It levels.
Levels the playing field, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And we all do it, and we all participate in these things. And no, I mean, you can not participate, but the whole idea, and this is a recurring theme with the underground, with Jubilee Underground, is that we're part of a different kingdom. The mycelium runs deep and it runs far, and it is not we're not part of the top surface thing. We're part of something deeper and further. And you don't have to participate, but just know that this is I'm kind of talking to myself here. You don't have to participate, but know, Judah, that this will help you remember who you are.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
Brings to light deeper realities. And
yeah.
I just wrote a little blurb the other day about the reason for mystery. Like
Ooh.
The reason that life is so complex, it's taken so long to even begin to understand a fraction of it. There's so much more to life and consciousness and spirit than we can observe empirically. Definitely more than we can control. And that's how it survives. Because if we could understand it and control it, we'd probably make a giant mess of it. But the operating in obscurity is,
and if we could control it, what how cool would that be, right? Like once you control something, it's like, well, it's just an extension of me now. and I have plenty of me.
that would be an ego trip,
Yeah.
And some people are doing their best, and they are. I think it is an ego trip, but part of humility, it's not just saying I'm nobody. It's knowing who you really are, truly are, and like Jesus, knowing that all things were in His hands,
Yes.
humbled Himself. But
it took that realization, right? First, like I love how you emphasize that. He didn't do it out of like, oh, I'm nobody. He did it out of I know who I am, and therefore, I enter into this.
In humility, there's a contentedness to play my part and take my place where I belong. And there's a lot of things I don't understand, and there's a lot of things I don't control, and that's okay.
Yeah.
I just want to be part of something bigger than myself.
Yeah.
And be the servant of all. I just want to be part of life.
Amen.
So yeah,
Amen.
there's a lot of obscurity and mystery to the beauty of the whole, but we get little peeks of it through symbols like foot washing, I think, and when you least expect it to.
Well, this has been really helpful for me, and I appreciate you bringing this up. Makes me want to go to a foot washing ceremony. So I will just be there in spirit with you as you go, and I just ask the Lord blesses you and gives you a blessing for someone else too while you're there.
Thanks. Yeah. Amen.
All right. Well,
thanks for talking with me.
No problem.
Been good.
Thank you, and we'll talk to you later.
All right. Peace.
All right. Peace.